Hey, it's Jeremy from jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you'd like to get bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress, animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up my books there. And there are links to all of these in the description of the video. If you want to check out those books before you buy them, you can follow the link to the home page of my YouTube channel. If you scroll down, you'll see book flip-throughs. You can flip through, see what's inside before picking them up. Okay. So let's get into some artwork. I see Byron's in the chat. Good to see you, Byron. Hey, hey. Thanks for popping in. You get first. So we're continuing here with the endless thumbnail project, and I will tell you honestly, I'm getting a little irritated at myself that I haven't had time to just finish this, because I think I want to just move on to cleaning the boards up and wrapping this project up. Sometimes when I do a project with comic books, I expect to be working on an issue for several months. But with shorter projects, whether it's a standalone illustration or a particular study, I think I do get antsy if I spend too many weeks on the same thing and I want to just move on. At this point, let me see. So this is the continuation of that astronaut locked out. And I already did the sequence where the astronaut was locked out of the space station. Now this is them. They kind of hit the door in frustration and went spiraling out into space. And they kind of used their propulsion pack to kind of push them back towards the door. And now they just get over to the door there and just grab the door handle and just rest their head against the door, like the way you would rest your head against the steering wheel when you're just defeated. And then she hears the really loud, the dog barking, looks over, sees a dog inside the looking out of the portal. Dog sitting there panting. I mean, yes, the tongue is not going to be hanging out of the portal. It's all rough sketches. She makes her way over to the door. She gets another alert, down to 5% oxygen, and then is like, okay, I need to get this dog to help open the door for me. Now, at this point, I think maybe because it took me a while to get into the storytelling flow, those boards from here on out, I might be able to just drop those into my template and I might actually be done. I was thinking about that, that I'm sitting here and I don't necessarily need to redraw every single frame of this. The whole point of this pass that I'm doing now is trying to make the cuts feel motivated, in the sense that when you go from one shot to a different angle, or from one character to a different character, one location to another location, you can feel the relationship between the shot before and the shot after. And it was a little bit disconnected in the first pass that I had, and it was a little bit better in the second pass. So I look at this stage as now my third pass of thumbnails, just trying to get the storytelling right. And that's a lot of work to put in just to try and fix your storytelling. But I mean, who goes into art if you're not willing to do hard work? All right. What do I want to do right now in this moment? I want to turn off these other layers. Actually, what I should probably do is leave these layers on. But I have a one of my previous passes, I grabbed a frame and moved it, copied and pasted it into this document. So let me turn this off and then look at the shots from here. Yeah, really from here, it's almost like I just need to take this sequence and see what needs to be fixed. I mean, hell, yeah, this sequence, I think, kind of does it. And I'm also wondering, this shot that came before here, this shot with her hands pressed against the window, dog looking out, and then you seeing the manual override over her shoulder, over the dog's shoulder. There's something about this shot that almost makes me wonder if I want to go back and just readjust the last couple of panels and use this angle versus the angle that I currently have. Yeah, I think at this point, these actually kind of work. Let me turn this off and just look at this sequence here. You know what? I need to see this. I need to see a couple of shots in comparison to what I have there. So I'm going to come in here, take this shot, copy, paste, turn that off, turn all of those other boards back on, and just move this down here. Actually move it right down here because this is what I'm comparing it to. So what I'm really just trying to decide is I like this angle and all of the storytelling that I want to do, which is not a lot of storytelling. All I want to do after this shot, basically what I pasted in here, I want to replace the shot above. And as you can see, one is just a flatter version of the same image versus the bottom one feeling more dimensional. Which is one of the things you're going to get flat work when you try to do your thumbnails in just squares and stick figures. So I might have just ended up here naturally anyway. But I'm checking to make sure that the shot, and it should work, where you see her watch flash, or rather her oxygen meter flash, and tell her, oh, the running out of air. So really, I can just take the one that's above and just replace it completely with this, just so I know this is the exact angle I want. But the question then becomes, do I want to tweak the shot that comes before it? And the shot that comes before it is where we go from a wide shot of the airlock that's locked, dog in the window, to a close-up of the, not a close-up, but sort of a medium shot of the dog in the window, and then the astronaut moving to that window. So then we go to the close-up of the two of them. And because we've shown the relationship between the two of these, in theory, we don't really need this shot in between. What I could do is just have the astronaut start moving in this wide shot and then just go from wide shot to close up. Now that I think of it and I'm looking at it in this way, this in-between shot is unnecessary. I think I'm going to cut that. But one of the things I like to do when I make decisions like that is I try not to delete shots, only in the sense that I might want to come back. You know how it is when you draw a thumbnail and you get something just right, and then when you go back later and you try to draw a refined version, a cleanup, or a finished piece, you can never quite capture the magic of that little squiggly line or whatever that shape was that just expressed exactly what you wanted just right. Because of that, what I'm going to do is before I go in here and start deleting frames, I'm going to take the current set of images I have. I'm going to duplicate this. And what I like to do is add a date to the name. It's today. It's the 24th of September. And then just turn that layer off and usually drag it to the bottom so it's kind of out of the way. So it's still in here in this document, but if I need to come back to it, I can get it. Otherwise, I just leave that layer turned off. And this way, when I go back to my main layer and I start cutting stuff, I'm not going to, I can always come back to this very simple sketch if for some reason I decide I need it. But meanwhile, I'm just going to come in here and cut that. I'm going to take this shot, just move it into position. Let's get rid of those edges. And this was the reason why I ended up switching to a proper template just for the thumbnails instead of hand drawing the frames. Like I thought by hand drawing them, I would eventually get good at make sure before I merge this down that I'm merging it with the right thing. Let's see here. Yeah, you want to merge this with that. I thought that by drawing the frame every single time I did a thumbnail, like these previous frames, that I would get better at just estimating letterbox frames. But the proportions I did were always more like older TV proportions. So when TV went from being not a complete square anymore to wider, but they weren't like widescreen TVs weren't regular yet. It's almost like I'm drawing the proportions of televisions that I grew up with. Anyway. Just having these frames on there that are in the correct proportion just makes it easier. And in the long run, I think this will still achieve the same goal. By drawing in frames this size, that I will eventually just develop an instinctual relationship for drawing frames in a correct proportion. Yeah, I think that this will actually work a whole lot better if I just stick with this wide shot, because we establish this wide shot when the astronaut is approaching the door for the second time. There's another shot where she's approaching it from a different angle. And hey, more folks rolling into the chat. I see Jay King in the chat. Good day, brother. How you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for dropping by. More storyboards, endless storyboards. I was saying at the top of the show, I'm kind of getting tired of myself. I'm working on this thing, and I'm at some point I'm like, I want to move on to something else. But I'm close. I just got to stay focused. And I was talking with my wife about this. And I think what I was telling her was that when I am designing, when I'm doing like toy design, for some reason I can do that and I can listen to podcasts or audiobooks or whatever. Unless I'm doing something that's highly mathematical and specific, I can just move stuff around and design and place artwork and change colors. And it's very instinctual. And when I'm drawing comics, when I'm drawing pages, drawing the anatomy, drawing backgrounds, working any of that out, I can do the same. When I am storytelling, when I'm working out thumbnails, and it's only for comics. When I'm doing thumbnails for a standalone illustration, I can still have on other forms of entertainment to listen to. But when I am drawing a sequence of stories, I need that part of my imagination that gets occupied by hearing other people's stories. So then I end up in this state where I can only listen to music while I'm drawing, which is good. A lot of creatives listen to music while they work. But I get bored because I've spent so many years listening to audiobooks while I'm working that it feels instinctual to me. And I dislike not having the option of being able to listen to stories. So it's one of those things where I can't listen to it because it's distracting, but I want to listen to it. And I think that is what's making me irritable during this creative phase. So let's see here. I don't need these extra backgrounds. So let's drop those. Let's go back to this. And we can duplicate the background again. And now all we need is to just show her starting to move. Towards that doorway. Copy, paste. Move over. J. King says, endure till the end. I'm gonna hang in there. I'm gonna hang in there, brother. It's rough, but gotta hang in, gotta keep the fight. And Amar is in the chat. Says, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sunday, Jeremy. Thank you, Amar. Happy Sunday to you as well, and welcome. Always a pleasure to see you. Let's see here. Duplicate. Move this down there. And I really may not even need 3 shots to do this. But what I've been thinking is kind of in the same way when I draw comics, I tend to think in terms of a tier of comics. Like a comic page has a beginning, middle, and end. So I tend to just break things down into 3s. So anytime my character's doing an action, I'll have the beginning of the action, the middle of the action, the end of the action. Or rather, what I also will do sometimes is I'm still breaking it down to 3s, but I'll have the anticipation of the action, the beginning of the action, and then the middle of the action, and then have the end of the action be concluded when I do a cut. So that way it's almost like narratively, there's always this through line of you're seeing an action begin in one cut and end in the second cut to hopefully keep a persistence of vision or a consistency, a persistence of movement that will help that if for some reason a change of angle feels slightly disorienting, or if it's just a big jump from wide to tight or tight to wide, that you will feel the continuity by seeing that you're seeing the action continuing from a different viewpoint, different vantage point. So let me go back up here. And this is one thing that I don't think that this is like a bug or a failure, but when I'm doing these, actually, you know what? That is an interesting thing I had never considered. So when I'm drawing these backgrounds, for instance, I'm going to merge these 3 layers right now. So these background layers, these are when I draw a background once and I need to reuse it and I'm happy with it, but I need to be able to cut, move it around. And so I just added 2 more that I'm going to be reusing as well. Now, what I've been doing is every time I do this, I lower the opacity. And I've been working with it at a low opacity. But if you merge multiple layers, those layers immediately, they merge at whatever opacity they were at. So if I had them at 10% opacity and I merge them, now they're no longer, fully black lines. They're just 10%. They're just semi-transparent, mostly transparent images. And if I need to go in, redraw, tweak some stuff, I can't. But what I can do is, well, first off, I wonder, can I make groups within groups? I guess I can. No, but you see, that's the problem. You can't adjust the opacity of a group the way you can adjust the opacity of a layer set in Photoshop. So for as much as I love Procreate, it isn't perfect. It has some limitations. Point being is that I just thought of another workaround for this issue, which is instead of dropping the opacity of this, what I can do instead is I can create a new layer that has the exact same color as the background. So I can fill it with, I think the background is 20% gray. Yeah. So if I turn this background layer off, you don't see any difference in the background. There's no lighter, darker flicker. So now I can take this background layer and I can, instead of dropping it down to 10%, I can drop it down to 90%. So This is now acting as a mask to knock anything back into the background that I want knocked back. So I can, if I want to add extra backgrounds, repeat backgrounds, or I'm afraid these backgrounds are going to conflict or interfere with whatever is happening in the foreground, I can draw all of those things below that gray layer. So let's see here. It'll, just give me a little bit of extra control there. And Amar says you can have groups within groups and control the blending modes and opacity and CSP as well. And I will tell you, I have CSP for desktop, and it's only because I didn't want to sign up for the subscription for the tablet version, the mobile device version of CSP. That's otherwise, so many people tell me they love CSP, and I didn't enjoy the desktop version, but that was more, I think, of the fact that drawing, I was doing the thing where you're drawing on a Wacom tablet that doesn't have a screen, and you're looking up at your laptop. And I've never enjoyed looking at that. I've never been very good at it. It feels disjointed. Since I moved to drawing on a tablet, I really prefer that interface. CSP may be the superior product for making comics. It's designed for making comics. I just have not thrown down for the subscription for it. And let's see here, James is in the chat. Good to see you as always. And he says, okay, video and sound quality are good. I'm happy to hear that. I will tell you, I definitely feel like the mic that I bought, a few months back was one of the best investments that I have made. I noticed the difference when I've gone back and listened to bits and pieces of episodes just to check stuff, and compared to getting the whole echo of the room. There's like fans, there's like an air purifier running in the corner, and for me, I don't hear any of that. The only thing you really hear is sometimes if one of the cats comes up and hops up in the cat bed that's next to me, you might hear them meowing, and I thought that's part of the show. It's like ask and they appear. I say her name and she didn't meow, but she's down here next to me, and yep, here she comes. Hi, sweetheart. Hi. Welcome to the stream. You're late. Yeah, it's like she knew I was talking about her, heard me talking about it. Oh yeah. Anyway, back to the art talk. This isn't the cat stream. Although that would probably be really successful if I could teach the cats to make art and just do a live stream of that. Hell, I wouldn't need to work anymore. I could just live off of just that show. Put these dudes to work. Let's see. Anyway, yeah, he says masking is a useful technique. And he says, it looks like you have made some, why is this not clicking over? Looks like you've made some refinements. Yeah, I'm basically kind of in the last leg of the thumbnails. And I am drawing, I'm kind of half drawing really extra simplified figures, and then half pasting in previous frames that worked really well. So I'm sort of like mishmashing it all together and just making it's like I'm smoothing out the last part that I drew that did seem to work at the end, and smoothing that in with all the changes that I made beforehand. And I'm wondering if I should lock this layer just to keep me from drawing on it. That gray mask layer. Let's see here. And James says, I still use CS6. I was using CS5 for a number of years, and then my laptop that I had died. And when I got a new laptop, the new laptop was just like, no, you gotta go Creative Cloud. They looked at, I tried to load my old Adobe app, and it just said, we're not doing this. No, sir. I refuse. So that was and in fact, that's what led me to moving to the Affinity Suite, which does not have all the features that Photoshop does, but given how that it's a one-time purchase, and it can do, I would say maybe, I don't even want to say 90. Let's say 80% of what Photoshop can do, it can do. But that 80%, given how much less expensive it is than Photoshop, that's a one-time purchase. And I think it's I can't remember if it's $100 or $200 for the universal license, where you get all of their apps. But I mean, even if it's $200, that's a steal. But I think I might have paid $100 for it because they had a sale if you already had the previous version. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's see here. On devices, Amar says, I use a 22-inch screen with the desktop version of Clip Studio Paint. And he goes on to say, I never really liked tablets that were not screen tablets as well. Yeah. So I'm curious, for the 22-inch monitor that you're using, are you using a Cintiq or a Huion or a monitor that you draw on, a display that you draw on? Let's see here. James says, gotta have the cats. And Amar says, she's cute and cats are smarter than people give them credit for. That is true. You know what? Cats and dogs. There are very, very smart dogs that are smarter than humans. Same with cats. There are also some humans. The problem is we try to act like we're different from animals. Humans and animals are the same. There are very, very dumb people, and there are very, very dumb animals. There are very, very smart people and very, very smart animals. That's it. So we lucked out with these guys. Let's see here. Islam and Health says, AOA, nice sharing. Stay safe and connected. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Amar says, I really like the Affinity Suite for like $75. That's what I paid for it. He says, when you catch it on sale, it's about $100. Yeah, that's what I think I paid for it. And he's working with an X Pen Pro HD. Awesome. I hear good things about the X Pen. And it's interesting because it's not like I hate on Wacom. I mean, for many, many years, they provided amazing devices, and they continue to provide amazing devices. But they are just so damn expensive. I think the competition that other people are bringing is good. They're making devices that are a little bit more budget friendly. I was watching a video the other day of Helioscope, which is a artist studio. So they're comic creators / writers / illustrators, just like a creative studio altogether up in Portland, Oregon. And they were talking in their video about how I think the video was sponsored by Wacom, and they were doing a tour of a Wacom center where people can just go in and test out devices. And one thing that was interesting is they showed one of the devices people were working on, which is kind of like their version of a Wacom tablet. And I think it was called the Wacom Home or something like that. But anyway, they mentioned that they were using a pen that was a small device. And the Apple Pencil, the reason why it's been such a game changer for me is because I have never liked drawing with the standard Wacom stylus. Yes, it does not need a battery. It works with the device. And I get that requires some electronics, and it's an incredibly great feature. I am much happier charging up my pencil and having a pencil that is smaller versus that larger thing, because it feels like I'm trying to do delicate work while I'm drawing holding a fat Sharpie. And I've never liked that. And I know that they have made smaller styli, if that's the plural of stylus. But I never really, I never liked it. I mean, I've never tried the small ones. Every time I've seen the small ones seem like they were like crazy expensive. I think it was like $200 to get a pencil-sized stylus, and I was like, I'll stick with what I got here. I will get back to drawing in a minute, but let's see here. Last couple of comments here. Amar says, I paid $500 for it and I've had it since 2018. It sounds like a very good deal for a 22-inch monitor that you can draw on. James says, I couldn't figure out how to get the most recent version of ZBrush running. I think you need a subscription for it anyway. I'll stick with the 2022 version for now. I don't know if backwards compatibility is still an issue with loading work in, but I should be able to get by without in the meantime. Yeah, ZBrush, I'm only now starting to spend time learning CAD. I've had Blender for a long time, but never really messed with it. But for work, I'm starting to use this program called FreeCAD, which is kind of like SolidWorks or Rhino. So it's a 3D program that's not mesh. It's all splines, and it's for product design. So you're literally, everything has the proper units and measure of space. It's not just pixels. It's like this is this many millimeters, height, wide, deep, tall. So that's something that's going to come in very handy for work, but I'm still in the process of learning that. See here. And Amar says, we think we know more than we do in our arrogance. That's when we get into problems. I think that's back to the whole pets things and animals being, just as smart or smarter in some cases than people. All right, so I don't even remember what I was doing. Okay, now I remember. I was going to draw people moving, or not people, but the astronaut starting to move. So I'm gonna, the astronaut lean. Whoops, that's an erasing, and I don't want to erase. Am I on the right layer? Those are the backgrounds. It's my mask. Oh, I'm not erasing. I'm drawing with gray, which looks like erasing. I'm drawing with the background color. All right, that mystery solved. If you draw with your background color, it's going to look like you're erasing. So I'm just going to tilt the body a little bit. That might be a bit much. Arm reaching out. Another arm. Switching over here now. Really simple movement there. So just arm reaching out, and then now over by the pod. And the next shot will be the astronaut coming. So from here, I'm going to go to this frame with the dog panting, but without the astronaut in there, or maybe the head just starting to come in, the head or the hand. So that way you get the astronaut moving into frame. So I'm going to take this cut and erase it. Put that there. Let's see here. Yeah, Amar says, in terms of FreeCAD, he says, it probably uses NURBS and splines That's the old school way we used to do things for 3D modeling back in the 90s, which is still used today for technical designs. That is exactly what it does. It feels very much like Adobe Illustrator with just extrusions and three-dimensional Boolean cuts. He says it's great for precision and 3D printing. I should give a shout out the guy who's I'm taking a YouTube series of YouTube tutorials on this program. So the program is called FreeCAD, and there's a guy called YT Hardware Guy. So the YouTube hardware guy, and he's just running through. He actually mainly designs, I think, with Fusion 360 is his preferred program, but he understands it and 3D modeling and 3D printing very well, and he wanted to do a series of tutorials for software that's more accessible for people that aren't paying the thousands and thousands of dollars that Fusion 360 is. So I appreciate that. I should probably remember to put a link to that in the description of this video for anybody who wants to get into some 3D modeling. Normally I have Post-its right here at my desk in case I have stuff I want to make notes of. They're all the way over on my computer desk. All right, that's that. Let's see here. Amar says, I use the background eraser for the brush I am using all the time in CSP, Sketchbook Pro, or Procreate. It says, it is the C key. I toggle it on and off while drawing. And he also says, I remember Fusion 360. Which is funny because I think I had heard the name mentioned around the office from other people that were doing CAD work. But for the most part, people I know work in the toy industry tended to use either SolidWorks or Rhino. So I don't know if you would say there is an industry standard in the toy industry, but those are the apps that I came across coworkers using the most. So I am just gonna erase the astronaut from this frame mostly. I don't want to get too caught up. I do need to establish some perspective, but should put a hand in here, reaching into the frame. I don't know if any of you are horror fans, but my wife and I just finished last night watching the Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, and it's been out for several years now because the director Mike Flanagan has made a couple of other series already. It's almost like he's building something similar to Ryan Murphy with American Horror Story, where he's reusing a lot of the same cast or a lot of the same actors in different horror stories, but he's not, branding it under one show or one idea. But he did The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, the Midnight Club, or Midnight Mass and Midnight Club, and now he's got Fall of the House of Usher coming out. Anyway, we completed watching what I think is the first one in the series, The Haunting of Hill House, and it was really, really, really good. It's definitely got some great scares in it. It's not gross out horror. There is definitely gore, but it's not gory. It's not like over the top splatterfest. It's just there's some creepy stuff sometimes when you see ghosts or dead bodies or, something horrible happening. You get like a quick glimpse of it. But the thing that I found amazing was that it was way as scary as scenes were in this series. It was really, really sad. The show is really just about familial trauma. And it's about a whole family that's traumatized by, growing up in this haunted house. And there's a lot of discussion of how PTSD and how people cope with trauma, addiction, mental illness. There's a lot in there. And there were definitely times when, like, once we got attached to the characters, it's less about people being scared by ghosts and monsters and creepy stuff happening. And it's just like this family that's at odds and everyone that's processing the trauma that they've lived through differently. I'm going to write about it for my newsletter. May not be in this month's newsletter because I'm getting to the point now where I have enough things that I've watched that I just sort of put them in a queue of things I'm going to write about and then get to them. So this may not appear until next month's newsletter, but I'm going to do a quick write-up on it. Let's see here. And Amar asked, how much longer, or he said, what series? The series is called The Haunting of Hill House. It's based loosely on a story. No, I think it's a full novel by Shirley Jackson, the woman who wrote The Lottery. Anyway, very, very good. Very much worth checking out. And he asked, how much longer you got for this storyboard? Yeah, I was saying the same thing at the start of the show. I'm like, when am I going to be done with this shit? This is the second to last page. Because basically, I'm dropping in bits and pieces from an older page. And in the older page, I'm basically at the scene where the dog pulls open the this manual override for the airlock. And then it goes from locked to unlocked. So really, it's going to be this page and then the next page where they're inside and reunited and it's done. I am going to go and draw cleanups of all these. So just dropping them into larger frames as these are thumbnails. So you might be stuck with me doing cleanup for another two or 3 weeks. But we're at the tail end. We're getting close to wrapping up here. And to be honest, it really is the fact that most days of the week, if I'm lucky, I get an hour a day to work on this. So yes, it is taking much longer than usual. My creative schedule has not been what I'd like it to be, but that's because I'm making an effort to not stay up all hours of the night and get more sleep. I think that, most of us are used to pulling all-nighters is kind of a pretty common thing for creatives, visual artists, and especially comic creators. But as I'm getting older and I'm trying to take better care of my health, I'm sitting there and saying, okay, it's 10 o'clock at night. I could stay up till 11:30, work a little bit more, and then go to bed. Or I can try to go to bed now and be fresh for tomorrow, be fresh enough that I'll be able to get up and work out before going to work. And I've been choosing health over creativity. And I can't say that I am happy. It's weird because I am healthier, which makes me happier, but I'm not, but I still have anxiety. I literally have creative anxiety about not getting as much artwork done as I'd like to. So it's a weird balance because the fact that I'm getting more rest and exercise makes me better at managing stress and anxiety. But the fact that I'm not making as much art as I'd like is raising that stress and anxiety. So it's kind of like there's two forces that are fighting with each other. And for most of my life, I've always chosen art. I've always said, well, if I have to choose between two different things, I'm going to choose and art's going to win. This is the first time in my life where I'm saying, let me consistently try to choose health and see what happens. And so far, it's different. I can't say it's better or I can't say it's worse. I'm less productive, but I'm not climbing up the walls the way I have been in the past. I think that I am nicer, more compassionate to myself and to people around me. Whereas when I'm stressed out before, I can be a bit of a dick. And I'm not proud of that. I don't encourage it. And it's still there. So it's still something I have to fight. But fighting it and keeping it in check is a lot easier when I'm getting enough sleep and exercise and eating a better diet. All of that. Like, yeah, let's get woo-woo. I'm trying to live a healthy art life. Let me flip back. There were a couple of comments from Amar that I skipped over. He said, I've been watching Kengan Ashura on Netflix, and I watched the new season of Baki already. He said both are inspiration for the Doyen series I would love to create. I wouldn't say you would love to create. I'd say you're already creating it. The rest of the world hasn't seen it yet. I love what I've seen of it yet, but you are already creating it. So it's just a matter of you sticking through that process, which again, I guess kind of ties back to you asking how much longer I was gonna be working on the storyboards. But he says if I can get a small short of intro for the characters in their environments, that would be cool. Well, I think the development you've already done on the characters looks dope. So it's just a matter of figuring out, how far you want to take that short. But I mean, even with this, I plan to take these storyboards and put them into a little animatic and put that on YouTube at some point. Let's see here. He also says, I tend to watch Korean horror series a lot. I think I saw that, but I've not watched it yet. Let's see here. Uncanny Counter is another one I'm watching as well. It says if I can get a small short. Okay, yeah, no, I already covered that one. Let's see here. Yeah, I saw a Korean horror zombie show just the other day. I saw a trailer for one. It looked interesting, but I can't remember the title of it. He says, got to get around to The Pope's Exorcist as well. Yeah, that looks good. It looks heavy and dark. I'll tell you what I really want to watch, and I'll see if I can talk my wife into watching it tonight, is Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. That autobiographical film about him growing up and falling in love with filmmaking. I will see if I can get her on board with that, because we've been watching a lot of dark and intense stuff lately, and I kind of like, she's open to it. She likes it and enjoys as much as I do, but we need to find a nice balance. So I'm going to see if we can find something that's a little bit more. Steven Spielberg is uplifting, but it's not a full-on comedy. And we always, I think our viewing works best when we balance drama or action with something that's comedy, not just, lighthearted or uplifting, but something that's just out and outright funny. The funnier, the better. So, and Byron says, art is a passion, but you can't draw if you're dead. So health should always be a priority. Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those things that I didn't believe or understand that when I was younger. And I don't know, considering the fact that my health seems to be holding up, knock on wood, but I might have been happier in my youth if I really prioritized taking care of myself better. But then again, that's also complicated by the fact that I've always, for most of my life, had difficulty sleeping. And if you're not sleeping well, it's really hard to do all the other things that you need to do. If you're not sleeping well, it's hard to exercise and to get motivated to exercise. If you're not sleeping well, you tend to overeat because your body is up. And when you're awake, if you feel tired, your body, and your body doesn't necessarily know that you're tired because you haven't been sleeping. I mean, your brain knows that you need sleep, but your stomach just says, oh, I need more energy. And so your stomach says, well, let's eat more. So if you're not sleeping well, you overeat because of that. So you're already impacting your cognitive ability. You're impacting exercise because you're not going to be motivated. You're impacting your diet, and all of those things are just going to make it spiral and get worse. So, I don't know what I could have done when I was younger to get myself to sleep better, because I worked out a lot, and I had to work out just to get if I skipped a workout, then I was going to be up for an extra hour that night anyway. My body just needed it. So I've been trying to I've been trying to stick with all of those things: sleep, exercise, better diet. Let's see here. Amar says, it might have been Home Sweet Home. It was good. I want to watch Alice in Borderland as well. And he says, I want to see the new Exorcist. It looks interesting based on the trailer. It's supposed to be in 2 parts. They did an Exorcist TV series, and there is a spoiler that I'm not going to throw out here. Only because I don't want to ruin it for people that are going to watch it. And I don't know whether that Exorcist TV show was on Netflix or on Hulu, but I want to say it was on Hulu. But it looked good. It looked interesting. Looked worth checking out. And James says, I've seen Absentia and Oculus from Flanagan, and I enjoyed them both. I remember when Oculus came out in the theaters, and I know that it has the woman who was in Doctor Who, who became one of the companions. She also plays Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy. I forget her name, but really good. I remember that was the first time I saw her in something. I was like, and I think I saw her. She was either in Doctor Who first or in Doctor Who not long after that. But anyway, yeah, I've heard really good things about Flanagan's movies, and I'll tell you from watching the TV shows, the TV shows are fantastic. Like he has a new one coming out, I want to say in October, and it's Fall of the House of Usher, and it's got a lot of the cast from The Haunting of Hill House. The trailer looks fantastic, so I'm definitely gonna be on board for that. See, the problem is now I've discovered this whole Flanagan Netflix universe, and I want to consume it all, but I know that we need to mix in something in between each horror series. We can't just watch straight horror because my wife will just not be able to sleep. I've had bad nightmares my entire life. So horror movies don't make me that much more likely to not sleep well. Whereas with her, they will keep her up at night. They will make it hard for her to sleep. She'll, have nightmares. Maybe if I have nightmares, I'm just like, oh, all right. I draw enough horrible shit and I see enough horrible shit in my imagination that a horror movie, gore, I don't really like. I can tolerate it, but I'm not if I see too much gore, I'm like, this is just gross. It kind of turns my stomach. But it's not like it keeps me up at night see gore. But for her, she's like, yeah, I can't. She's like, I can't do nonstop horror, and I get that. So we have to find a balance together. James says, I had a terrible case of insomnia before, so that wasn't fun. Sometimes I have a hard time falling asleep, but I don't feel crappy in the mornings like I was before. And Byron also chimed in. He said, as a chronic insomniac, I understand those pains far too well. And he said, drawing is quite often a way for me to exhaust my brain enough to actually sleep. Now, see, that is an interesting thing because my experience with drawing is exactly the opposite. Making art kind of lights my brain up. And another reason why I've been less and less productive over the past year is because what I've been doing is I've been forcing myself to stop making art 1 hour before whenever I want to go to bed. If I want to go to bed at midnight, I need to stop by 11, and that's a late night for me. If I want to go to bed at 11, I need to stop all artwork by 10 p.m. And I'll usually just sit down and find a book to read, which I have books all over the place. I've got plenty of stuff I haven't read to read. So if I draw all the way up to the time I want to go to sleep, then what happens is I will just lay in bed, and I just lay in bed for like 45 minutes with the creative part of my brain. My brain wants to keep making. And that has been one of the experiences that kind of made me an insomniac. Like I would just be up drawing, and then finally I would get exhausted, but it was that I was exhausted and had to stop drawing. It wasn't like, oh, drawing made me tired enough. If I let myself, if I'm drawing, my brain will let me keep going until 2 a.m. That's usually about the time where my body finally says, okay, you need to shut it down. But on its own, my drawing wakes me up. In fact, I use drawing almost like caffeine. I mean, yes, I'm drinking coffee as well, but it helps keep me up. And I'd say that that was a big part of the insomnia that I've had most of my life. Let's see here. No, James says, I was posting those comments in another window, so I was wondering why they weren't showing up. So that's the problem. We're multitasking. We've got multiple tabs open, multiple windows open, and sometimes we're putting stuff in there. It's like, wait a minute, where is that? Let's see here. Byron says melatonin doesn't work for me, unfortunately. I will tell you, I have tried melatonin and it did work, but I found that it worked too well, and then I was getting really, really tired, and I was having to go to sleep. Like I was going to sleep at like 9 o'clock every night, so I eventually had to stop. But what I've done now is, one, I tried valerian root as opposed to melatonin. They are pretty similar. Valerian root seems to work better for me. And two, I did find that when I took it every night, maybe around 8 p.m., well, I was taking it around 7 p.m. and it would make me, tired around 9 p.m. So it took 2 hours to kick in. Eventually what I did was, one, I switched to taking my dosage later in the evening, because for me, the challenge is that if I take it right before bed or an hour before bed, it doesn't kick in, and then I'm still tossing and turning. And then I'm also a little bit more tired in the morning. So it's like I'm trying to find just the right time to take it. It's a careful balance for me. Taking it early enough that it will actually make me sleepy while I'm, up and about. Like I want it to basically hit me between 10 and 11. That's when I want it to hit me, so that I'll be ready to just naturally go to bed at 11. And the other thing is I don't take it every day. What I'll usually do is take it every other day, or I'll space it out in days, because that way, someday, if I take it every day of the week, it builds up in my system, and then I do start getting tired all the time and going to bed earlier. Whereas if I take it 4 days out of the week, I've found this equilibrium, this balance, where most days I am tired enough that I can go to bed at a reasonable time. But if I need to work until 11, I can work till 11. Hell, if I need to work till midnight, I can work till midnight. But usually when I'm doing that it still comes back to that thing of I need to force myself to then unwind before bed. And the other thing is it takes a couple of weeks of using the valerian root before it kicks in. So if you just try it for a week and it doesn't work, you need to stick with it. So I recommend trying valerian root, and I recommend trying it for a month, where try it for a month and maybe try taking it 2 hours before bed and see what it does for you. Let's see here. A lot of health talk here. All right, let me catch up. So James says, I liked Run Rabbit Run. It's on Netflix. I feel like I have heard that one. I've seen the trailer for it. I don't remember the details, but I'm going to go back and watch the trailer again after the stream. And maybe that's another one for us to put on the list. And Amar says, I worked too much when I was young, even in college, even through my nightclub days. And Herman in the chat says, just swinging by to say hi. What's good, bro? To chat. Hope to catch your next stream. So busy. I thank you for stopping by. I know that feeling of just life being busy and crazy and never having enough time. I mean, there's some people that I actually need to reach out to, specifically some friends, and just say, hey, we need to catch up and chat and just, hang out and chill. So I need to do that. I'm really, really bad about staying up with friends and people. I'm staying up with you guys every week. So we got a standing appointment for that. Speaking of which, we're a little bit over an hour. So I think it is time to wrap it up here. We'll let's see here. Yeah, hopefully I will be done with the thumbnails, and next week we'll just be doing some light cleanup, which is just going to be really slightly, not super tight drawings, but just slightly more readable drawings, a little bit of tone, just clarify clarify storytelling, a little bit of perspective in the backgrounds. But yeah, we'll be bringing this thing in for a landing soon. And on that note, if you enjoy these live streams, twice a month, we do a thing called Art Book Study Group. It's where we do deep dives at some of the best art books around. We've been doing a long-running series on a book called The Figure by Walt Reed, which I think is one of the best books on drawing fundamentals that I've come across. So we're just going through page by page, doing studies from it, learning, taking notes, drawing, redrawing. Right now, I've been drawing some really embarrassing self-portraits. So if you want to see those and hundreds of hours of more studies, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. There's a whole archive of pages on there, of videos on there for you guys to check out, in addition to those studies. And we also, it's not just the Walt Reed's book. We've done some on animal drawing with Ken Holtgren, some on George Bridgman, which we have not finished Bridgman's guide to drawing the figure, and that is something that's going to be a upcoming project once we wrap up Walt Reed. There's also an archive where you can read my comic books digitally. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, if you'd like to get blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to pick up physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up books like my graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. It is a standalone book. One and done. You can also pick up Morning Star, my most recent project. It is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, but told as a Western. So it's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character designs, script excerpts, thumbnails, page layouts, photo reference. I basically walk you through the process of how I put the entire comic book together. And again, if you guys want to see what's inside those books before you pick them up, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/Jeremy. And if you scroll down on the homepage, there will be a playlist for book flip throughs. Those book flip throughs, I just sit the books down in front of the camera, flip through page by page, and let you check it out, see what's inside before picking it up. So again, guys, I always love hanging out with you guys, talking, spending time, chilling. Good times as always. I realize now the conversation continued while I moved over when we were talking about the sleep talk. I feel like we already gave such a good wrap up there. You know what? Screw it. I don't care. This is my last stream. We can do it how we want. We're going to talk about dreams a little bit more. I gave the wrap up there. But let's see here. Amar says, I remember having nightmares after I saw the episode of Oprah that teaches you how to control your dreams. He says it stopped it immediately, and that was way back in the 90s. Yeah, I've had lucid dreams since I was a child, and I learned to control them, but it wasn't like anyone guided me or gave me tips. Once I was aware that I was having a dream, if it was unpleasant, I stopped fighting the thing. And I think it was that desire to control the dream that made the anxiety or made it turn to a nightmare. And when I sort of said, okay, this is happening, and just sort of took my hands off the steering wheel, usually what would happen is I would very quickly wake up. But even if I didn't wake up immediately, I just sort of it drifted back. I have had nightmares where I was completely awake and alert, but still couldn't move or come out of it. And those suck. And I still have those sometimes. But let's see here. Amar says, I remember since I worked every night shift that I was drunk awake a lot when I was younger. He said, but I had no sleeping problem. And he also says, why is this running slow all of a sudden? He said, what I miss about that time was that I saw more weird things as a child when I did have nightmares. I don't know if I miss the weird shit, because I imagine so much weird shit now that it's almost like I am constantly having a waking dream anyway. And it's like I'm aware that I'm imagining things. But it's not like I'm imagining things like I'm actually physically seeing them. But in the same way that you project in your mind's eye an idea for a sketch, that's always there and it's always around me. And I can look at things and just in my mind imagine whatever weird shit. Could be like a giraffe on fire crossing the street, whatever. I can imagine all sorts of stuff. Byron says, for me, I've been insomniac for as long as I could remember. Parents would tell me about my insomniac tendencies, even the first few years of my life that I can't remember. What's funny is, I don't like that whole blame your parents thing, particularly because I have great parents. I love my mom and my dad. They are amazing. They were amazing. They continue to be amazing. But what's funny is my mom was a nurse before she retired, and for almost all of her career, as far as I know, she worked the night shift. So, and I have found that I always tend to just wake up or get at the time when I should be getting tired. Like I'll be home and I'll be kind of groggy in the evening, like around 7, 8, 9. And for some reason around 10 o'clock, just it would come back, and I'm like, I'm up, and I want to be up, and I want to work from 10 to 2, ideally in a perfect world, those 4 hours would just be blocked out for me to make art. If I didn't have to keep a normal day job schedule, 10 p.m. to 2 p.m. would be like prime time for me. That's when my mom was usually getting up and going to work. So before I was even born, I was biologically programmed for that. And I've spent most of my life fighting my biological programming. Let's see here. Amar says, Also, I was a lucid dreamer all the time, but it has been a spell since I've had them regularly. He says, luckily, my body is mostly like a computer. When I tell it to go to bed, when I tell it it's time to go to bed, for the most part, most of the time I am out. I wish I had that ability. He said there are rare cases. It used to be when I was younger because I was more active and always doing something. I think that's a lot of it. Like there was a point probably in my late 20s, early 30s when I had to acknowledge that it wasn't that I can't sleep, it's that I don't want to sleep. More often than not, it'd be late, but my brain is like, I want to make art more. I want to read books. I want to do this. I want to do that. My mind doesn't want to shut down because there's so many things that I enjoy that I want to engage in that my body's just like, stay up, keep doing it. You're living life. Don't go to sleep. And then I would feel like crap the next day. So, you got to learn that balance. And plus the fact that as an older person now, I like sleep a whole lot more than I used to when I was younger. Kind of like the way little kids sometimes don't want to take a bath or take a shower. Kids also fight against taking naps, especially when they're preschool age. But I remember even in like elementary school or middle school, like sometimes I would like on the weekends I would take naps. And by the time I was in high school, I was like, you give me a good nap middle of the day, that's like candy. And in college, I was running track and field, which was incredibly demanding physically. I would get up, go to my 8 o'clock classes because as an art major, the classes are either 8 to noon or 1 to 5, and they were 4-hour studio classes. And because I had track practice in the afternoon, I had to have all of my morning classes were all 8 a.m. classes. So generally speaking, I always had to get up the entire 4 years I was in college. I never got to sleep in. So I would get up, go to my morning classes, come back to the dorms or wherever I was, sometimes I'd eat lunch on campus, but have lunch, maybe have a quick afternoon class. On the days when I didn't have a class crammed between practice and lunch, I would go back to the dorms and try to sneak in like a 45-minute nap before practice. So napping was like a survival mechanism. Oh yeah, we were talking about this earlier with the diet. Amar also says sleeping can also be affected by your diet. He says, I know when I stopped eating meat, I no longer have the itis anymore. Yeah, that's very true. Eating a heavy lunch eating a heavy meal will put you out. And then Byron also says thanks for the stream as always. Well, you know what? Thank you guys for showing up and hanging out. It means a lot to me. Being a creative, we're all solitary creatures, or at least we kind of have to be in order to get stuff done. But I think having a community of people like you guys hanging out while I'm making stuff and for us to be able to talk shop and talk process, all I know is it enriches my creative life. You guys give a lot to me just by being present. So it means a lot to me. I appreciate you guys all very, very much. Byron says, my dad is a night shifter too. Doesn't fall asleep until 6 or 7 a.m. most days. That is rough. My mom, well, I definitely knew we had to be quiet during the day. And sometimes I definitely got chewed out for being too loud, but my mom would come home at 7. She'd usually be home right before I was getting ready to leave for school. Or when I was really little, she'd come home from work, take me to school, and then come back and then go to sleep. So like my mom would sleep for a few hours, then she'd get up usually around, the time I got home from school. She'd be up for a few hours, she'd make dinner, then she'd go back to sleep for a couple of hours and then get up to go to work. So that was, maybe that's where a lot of my napping comes from. Like I think my body was wired before I was born to an irregular sleep schedule, and it's made getting a solid 7 to 8 hours of sleep hard. But you know what? I keep trying. I keep striving. just like with making art, I keep striving and trying, and hopefully you guys will keep striving and trying, and you guys go be creative.